Hey everyone, okay, so this is now the shakedown trip for the 76. We're starting from Geehi, which is where the rig reveal video was filmed. So Geehi is on the Alpine Way, on the way through to Kosciuszko. We're heading north via the Geehi Walls track. So starting from the Geehi Camp Ground, we start by looking at the Geehi Hut, which is on the south side of the Scrubby Creek. And then crossing the creek, we head on to Keebles Hut, and then the old Gehi Hut, continuing on the Geehi Walls Firetrail to the major Clews Hut, and then exiting via crossing private property back onto Waterfall Farm Road, which is pretty close to Cancoban. It's a pretty easy drive. I've done this before, and that's why I thought it would make for a great shakedown trip for the 76. And also, last time I filmed this, it was at the end of a couple of days trip, so I didn't actually take the time to visit all the huts because I didn't have the daylight. As it was dark when I filmed my last Geehi Walls video when I was exiting. So today we're visiting all the huts. Now the sharp-eyed among you will notice I missed one. It's on the other side of the river and there wasn't a track to it, and I missed it on the way through. So that's Doctor's Hut. That'll have to be a future video. Hope you guys enjoy this one, and as always, thanks for watching. So here we are at the Geehi day use area, heading towards the campground, which is just on the south side of the Scrubby Creek. There's a couple of long drop toilets. You just saw one there on the left of frame. That's one of the new long drop toilets they've built here. They've been doing some upgrades, so the Geehi campground has been closed periodically over the last little while. Now when you get down here, you've obviously got the option of going left or right. I chose to go left. I probably needed to go right. That would have been a more direct route to the hut, which is the Geehi Hut on this side. You can see there the old and the new long drop toilet. The new one's not quite open, so the old one is still in service there until the new one opens. There's a lot of campsites even on this side, pretty close to the river. The river's on the left of us here. You can see these guys here have got a pretty prime spot up on the bank overlooking the river. You may or may not get glimpses of the water there as we drive past. Yeah, you can sort of see that. Like a lot of river crossings, the depth here varies markedly. At the moment, it's pretty low. I've never seen it super deep here, but yeah, I imagine like all river crossings, it's got that propensity to get deep at times. Obviously a big group here camping at the moment, all those matching tents. You can see just how much space there is here in this main campground and how nice and level it is, and generally nicely grassed as well. That's the crossing there on the left, takes you through to Behrs Flat, which is the big open area, which we'll head to shortly. But first of all, our first stop at our first hut is the Geehi Hut. This is the first hut at Geehi, named Geehi Hut. Pretty sure the one we're looking at straight ahead there is a rebuilt version, and the original one is over there. Quite a bit of info here. So as you can see there, the timber building on the right over there is all that remains of one of the original huts built at Geehi by Harry Tyrrell. And the stone hut was built in 1952, so that first one was in maybe the 30s. And the building was damaged and repaired back in 03-04. So as you'll see, the valley here is quite a large valley, and it's not surprising that it was a popular area for mustering and stock management and running cattle. So
The Alpine Way opened in 1952, vehicles replaced pack horses, and after 1958 grazing in the park was excluded, and it was much harder to access Gehi as a grazing area. Let's go and have a look at the huts. Just amazing mortared stonework. River stones from the Swampy River, which is the river just over here. As you saw on the sign, this was rebuilt in 2003, 2004. Really cool inside here. Nice timber floor, a couple of fireplaces. As you saw, probably the sign on the door, no camping allowed inside the hut for obvious reasons. The internal walls are stone as well. Very, very cool. If this is what it was like back in the 40s and 50s, stone walls with timber floors and windows, it would have been a pretty luxurious dwelling for its time. Looks like that one doesn't open. Possibly, oh, this one does. So veranda out the back. No doubt a washroom or something out here. Storage room, washroom. Really great work. And as you can see, what a cracking spot for a house. The river is literally right there. This door has had a bad day by the look of it. Maintenance items there. Again, more of that really cool stonework. A little bit of movement and cracking, but she's pretty solid. Much more solid than the door. Let's go and check out the original building. What's left of it. So this is what's remaining of the original 1930s structure that was built by Harry Tyrrell. Stone fireplace, of course, endures better than just about anything. Didn't say anything about this one having been rebuilt. May well have been. But they're certainly old style hand split round timbers. Very cool construction. Bound up with wire. Definitely old school farm construction, that's for sure. So, about to start the track, so time to lock the hubs. Okay. That looks right. Let's do the other side. How many times am I going to head off road in this thing and not do this? Probably more than I care to think. Consensus is the later model 70 series that have got auto locking hubs, although more convenient, it's actually a backward step as far as the purists are concerned. Anyway, we can chat about that another time. Let's get into it.
So yeah, after leaving the Geehi Hut, just a matter of turning around and heading towards the Swampy River, Scrubby River. I'll double check that. Scrubby Creek. And across this water crossing. I've done this probably 3 or 4 times and it's always been fairly shallow, built up nicely, and this takes you across to Behrs Flat, which is a large open valley area with a number of camping spots, again right along the river. So that's what makes this area such a cracking spot. You've got long drops on the south side of the river crossings, 2 or 3 of them, as well as a heap of camping spots. And then if you come across this side of the river, I think there's a long drop down near the Keebles Hut, but close to the river not so much. And but yeah, you can see there just how big this valley is. So every other time I've been here, I've taken the track straight along, which takes you basically straight to the hut. This time I thought I would take the roundabout track that actually takes you along the river line. You can see a bit of a camp spot there. There's just a heap of them along here. They're not sort of formally identified, but there's a number of open spots that are nicely grassed, that like another one just down in there, that would make for cracking camp spots right on the river. You're only a few meters off the river here. The GoPro doesn't really allow for it to sort of show that side view. You can see the river's just literally right there. Again, the track splits here down to the right, down to a nice big camp spot there. I've just stayed on the main track, and you can see up ahead there, that's the next hut in the distance. But what a big open valley this is. So yeah, more camping spots here. You can see a couple of people camping close to the hut. There's some picnic tables and fire pits built in, and that's Keebles Hut. And again, another amazing hut built out of river stone, sourced from the river nearby. Just really impressive.
Second hut, when starting from the Gehi day use area, is Keebles Hut, built in 1948 for Arthur Nankervis. Now the Nankervises are a pretty well known cattle family up in the Vic High country. You might recall they were involved in I think the original setup of Bluff Hut, or one of the other huts up along that way escapes me just at the moment. But yeah, another really nice stone built hut, built with river stones. Apparently it took 6 weeks to build, which is just amazing. Let's have a look. So I feel like this has probably been refurbed. I'd be surprised if it originally had a concrete floor. Maybe it did. Nice round timber rafters. Nice picnic table in here. A lot of flies. Function of being near the water, I guess. Old original wood-fired stove there. That is very cool. Not much of a chimney at the moment, I don't think. Door to outside. Very cool. And original stone flagging. This is probably more like what I would have expected to see in here. I do think this concrete got added sometime later. Nice latches there on the windows, for them to open out for ventilation. Another cracking spot. You can see there, Keeble Lodge, 1948. A few good camp spots right here, again, right on the river. Really, really nice. Haven't been to Gehi for a while. Last time was over a year ago. And then it was late in the day and we're just passing through on our way home. Definitely a spot to come and camp for a day or two, I think, down the track. All right, let's keep going.
So once you head off from Keebles Hut there, it's a short drive back down the main track. So straight ahead is the Gehi day use area where we came from. Turning to the right here, we link through to the Gehi Walls track, So this is one of the only turn-offs that you take if you're visiting the hut. So just back towards the main area, and does seem a little counterintuitive, but it very quickly loops back around to the river in almost no time at all. Keep in mind, this is literally my very first time driving this thing off-road, so at times I'm taking it really slow. I'm trying to get a handle on the different gearing and when to select high range, when to select low range, what gear to be in, all that sort of stuff. So just keep in mind, the guy driving this car doesn't know what he's doing. It's a manual and he hasn't driven one regularly for 30 odd years and never off-road. Well, never's a long time. Suzuki Sierra that I drove when I was a teenager was a manual, and I used to drive that off-road, but that was a long time ago. So yeah, you'll see that I'm taking this a bit slower than I might normally have taken it in the patch, because this is literally the shakedown trip, and it's kind of for me and for the car. So this is the second crossing of the Swampy Creek, and this is typically the longer of the two crossings and often the deeper of the two crossings. When I say deeper by comparison, it's still not a deep crossing. Again, I've never had this more than about halfway up the wheels, but look how still that water is today. Really nice crossing here, and you can see there it's not particularly deep up on the vehicle at all. The 76 certainly does move around, keeping in mind that it's still running stock suspension, but I definitely feel like it moves a lot more over rocks and things like this than the Pajero would have, which, given the solid axle versus independent suspension, you've got to expect that. As you can see, nice easy exit here, and the track just continues on down the valley. And as I said right at the start of this video, this track is not a difficult track. It was one of the tracks actually I had earmarked to try with the camper trailer for the first time, because I haven't really taken that off-road much at all. A couple of mountain bike riders there, so they're probably at the main camp. So again, that'd be a cracking way to explore the valley and explore the huts. Camp up at the main camping area and bring your mountain bikes and ride down and check out all the huts. Be really good fun. So not too far after crossing the river, again we've got this turn off here which takes us down to the old Gehi Hut. So this is the third hut, third one we're getting to anyway. And really most of this track you could probably do in an all-wheel drive vehicle if you were so inclined, and the tyres that I'm running on this thing at the moment are the road biased all-terrains. They're practically road tyres if you ask me. So yeah, nothing really particular required. That's the old Gehi Hut there. Now I could see on my navigator and just up ahead here anyway that there was a track continuing past the hut, and as such I thought best to take it and check it out. So I was just keen to explore this track. Again, I've never had the time to explore the side tracks in this area, and today I was making that time as best I could to go and check those things out. probably seems a lot further than it actually was, because it really wasn't very far at all. But again, I'm taking it pretty slow because I'm getting used to driving this vehicle. And what I found is this track takes you through to a really secluded private camp spot right on the river. As you can see through the trees there were already some people there. So look, I didn't leave the camera on and film them at the camp spot.
Just stopped at old Geehi Hut, a little bit further into the valley. Some cracking camping spots here. Little track over there leads down to a very private campsite currently occupied. And here's the hut. Another amazing hut built out of these river stones. Let's go and have a look. So built in 1948 by Don Benson, builder from Cancoban. Tender price for construction of the hut was $920. There you go, it's had a few names. Now officially known as the old Geehi Hut. Let's have a look. Again, really good condition inside, nice concrete floor. Like if you found yourself in this area with really inclement weather, you could definitely take shelter in these huts. This one's a little bit larger round timbers all painted up. River stone construction from the river that's quite close nearby. Very cool. Guessing the pine furniture is a little bit of a later addition, and looks like the fireplace here actually gets some use. A little bit of cookware left here. Notice there to keep an eye out for hawkweed, invasive weed. Some tips there about looking after the huts in the high country. And they are a valuable resource that does need to be looked after. Well, so much for the rain that was threatening on the way up here. Certainly seems to have cleared up. New rigs handling this pretty easy, as you'd expect. So yeah, really cool taking the time to explore Gehi a little bit more. As I said, I've been here a few times. Never had the time to take my leisure and actually explore the huts a bit, and read a little bit more about the story and just see how many cracking camping spots there are here, right on the river. You know, this it's only a couple of hours out of Albury. You know, for my money, this is probably a better camp spot than Tom Grogan, to be honest. Definitely. There's so many little spots here. You could definitely find your own spot at most times, just accepting those really peak times. So anyway, it's come out clear and blue. Weather's really good. So let's push on with the rest of the Gehi Walls track.
So yeah, heading out of the old Gehi Hut there, we continue to the left on the main track, and as you can see up ahead there, it's not too long before we start to see where the track gets its name of Gehi Walls. Basically, a lot of the track works its way along the walls of the valley, so there is a bit of climbing, a bit of descent as we move up one side of the valley and then across to the other later on. None of it's particularly steep, but it's a nice steady climb in places, that's for sure. The track has always been in pretty good condition. Getting a bit of a glimpse there, you know, the higher you get, you end up with a nice steep drop off on one side. I've never seen a lot of traffic on this track. If you met someone coming the other way, it'd be a little tight in some of the sections like this. And there's a cracking view off to the left there that you're not really getting the benefit of with this GoPro angle. You know, if you're in and around the Albury Tallangatta, Corryong area and looking for a nice day trip, and you've got a four-wheel drive or even an all-wheel drive with decent tyres, the trip through Gehi is one I definitely recommend. Just worth keeping in mind, it is seasonally closed, so that's usually from the June long weekend through to the end of October. And yeah, there's a side trip there. So again, these little side tracks are ones that I've always driven past in the past. Today I thought, you know what, I've got the time, let's check it out. I knew there wasn't a hut down here because the next hut is the major Clews Hut. It looked like a fairly well used track, and I thought, why not, let's go and check it out. Wasn't very far along with it, as you can see, before it opened up into this nice level open campsite, again right on the river. You can see they've put a barrier in there just on that little track down to the river. Obviously some people must have been driving vehicles down there, and that's not what they want to see in this area, yeah, you've got good access down to the river. Cracking little camp spot just over there overlooking the river, really accessible. Definitely one I've put a GPS marker in and would like to come back to sometime down the track. It's the kind of spot that would be easily in reach on a Friday night leaving Albury. And yeah, not too long at all, and we're back on the main track and continuing on. Unfortunately, this little river crossing here has actually got a bridge. It must fill up a little more than some of the others or something, so no challenge to that crossing, not even getting the tyres wet there. And once again, it's not too long and we find ourselves climbing up the sides of the valley again. As you can see, it's just a long steady climb, not super steep or anything. Bit of a drop off on the left hand side there, but this section is actually a little wider. I think if you met someone coming the other way, you get past each other okay. The inevitable 180 degree switchback that all of these sort of tracks have. Certainly did find that the turning circle, steering arc on the 76 is not nearly as tight as the Padge, so that's something I'm going to miss. A lot of those high country tracks I'd find on the Padge on full lock I'd get around in one turn. I suspect I'm going to be doing a lot more sort of 3-point turns driving the 76, but again, that's just one of the compromises that I'm making for this platform, and time will tell whether that's something that I agree and continue to feel is reasonable, or whether I end up not being satisfied with that. Now, of course, I hit that at a bit of speed on purpose to test the suspension on the 76. I absolutely, not the case that I didn't see that coming up and hit it faster than I intended. That's not what happened. A lot of this track though is, same there, meant to do that. A lot of this track is pretty good condition though, and does sort of encourage you to take it at a reasonable pace. I actually think it's certainly no longer, but probably nearly as quick as taking the twisty bitumen road from Cancoban around to Gehi. And yeah, when you get along here, you see this major road or major track coming in from the right hand side, exactly like it says on the screen. That is the access to the major Clews Firetrail, which is also the access to the major Clews Hut. This is actually my first time visiting this hut. The very first time I did Gehi, and I think that's when I filmed the video, I couldn't even access this hut. It was closed for renovations at the time. So this is the very first time that I've had the opportunity to see this hut, and it's got quite a cool story behind it too, this one. Major Clews was an ex-member of the Royal Australian Army Survey Corps who worked for the Snowy scheme in the area here.
Here we are at the Major Clews, I think that's how you say it, hut. A little bit different to the other huts in this vicinity, and named for a Lieutenant Colonel, also known as Major Clews, who retired from the Army and then took up work with the Snowy Hydro Scheme surveying. He was Royal Australian Survey Corps and then worked for the Snowy, finding and exploring and mapping a lot of these areas that we now get to go and investigate. And then after retiring from the Snowy, he lived here on this site, so he actually built this hut, and it's built largely of rammed earth apparently. This is the first time I've seen this hut. Last time I came through here, access to the area was closed, so let's go inside and have a look. Somebody's kindly left some dry firewood there. Really good condition. I think they were doing some refurb work a couple of years ago when I first came here and wasn't able to get access. There's those flies again. Even in here, closed up. This is really nice. I guess that's the difference though. This was somebody's residence. He lived here permanently. Lovely stone fireplace, storage cupboard there. Amazing old timbers. Old school bed. And it's kind of muggy outside, but inside here it's quite comfortable. The rammed earth walls do a top job of actually creating thermal mass. Guessing that's the shower. A little bit dark in here, so I can't see a drain in the floor, but guessing there was one. And this is the bathroom here. Pretty simple, but certainly worse places to live, that's for sure. Yeah, pantry, storage cupboard there. What an awesome hut. A little bit further from the river than a lot of the others. Major Clews actually lived in this area, not on this exact site, but in another site. Looks like some foundations there for maybe what was another part of the building. But yeah, he lived not on this site, but in another area just near here. I think it was called the Indie Camp, while he was working for the Snowy scheme. Yeah, just amazing. Some good campsites here, some reasonably level ground over the back there and down this way. A little bit of slope up there. I'm probably going to flatten the batteries in this thing at some point, because so used to driving a car where the headlights auto turn off. That's just the like the accessory lights on. Anyway, we'll figure that out.
So yeah, it was quite interesting to visit the Major Clews Hut and learn a bit more of the story behind it. Amazing guy that I guess his background in the army prepped him for living off the land, but he lived out there, or out here I should say, for a large part of his working life with the Snowy, and then beyond that, I believe he ended up living there until approximately the 1980s possibly. Just an amazing story. And quite cool to see a rammed earth hut. I guess that's one of the big differences for the huts in this area. A lot of the high country huts, in fact most of them are timber and corrugated iron, where the huts here are stone, and the Major Clews Hut is stone and rammed earth. So very, very different to the majority of the high country huts that you would see elsewhere in the big high country, and I think that alone makes it worth the trip to come and check them out. little stream crossing there, one of the tributaries that feed down into the main river. And once you get to the major Clews Hut and then continue on your journey north, you can actually take the major Clews Firetrail back to the Alpine Way if you want to, so you can make a loop of it. But if your destination is to head north and get out and head towards Camp Ground and beyond, you take the track that we're on here, and it's a pretty short run through the national park till you get to the boundary with the private property that you traverse for the very last section of this trip. And like the rest of the track, this last section of track here is all in pretty good condition and very, very drivable. Just actually coming up to that private property now. You can see as the national park sort of recedes around us and we come into this open valley, there's some cracking views here as well, and that's the gate just up ahead there. Now in this particular case, for some reason the GoPro battery died just there, so changed the battery after I opened the gate. Now as always, when you're traversing private property, leave the gates the way you found them, which is generally shut. So make sure to close the gate securely behind yourself, because generally there's stock grazing, and stay on the marked track. Again, one of the biggest complaints landowners that have the tracks crossing their property have is people disturbing their stock by going off the track, or just generally damaging grass and damaging the site. As you can see, great view there of the Camp Ground pondage, and the rain has just started, so it held off for basically the whole trip, and just as getting to this last section, it's actually started up, so I really can't complain. It was a really nice drive, great to see the huts, and a really a nice drive for the first trip in the 76. Pretty happy with it, definitely. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this first video on the 76. As I said, it's a pretty simple trip, but well worth doing if you have the opportunity.
So this is probably one of the best signs I've seen on a track that crosses private property. It's really helpful for everybody. So clearly identifies that this last section of the track is private property and how far it is to the national park, and importantly identifies that it is open, and this is seasonally closed, so it can be flipped over. There's a padlock there obviously that the owner has the key to, so it can be flipped over in the off season to let you know that in fact it's not actually open. So really good. As it says there, guys, stay on the tracks when you're driving on private property. I mean, national parks, same. Stay on the tracks, be respectful, and tracks like this will stay open. Looks like that weather's finally caught up with us. All right. Okay, well, that's the end of the Shakedown trip for the 76. Just outside Camp Ground here at the end of the Geehi Walls track. It's been a great day. Took my time, explored all the huts. Nothing too challenging for the 76. But given we're running road bias tyres, really happy with it. Rain's setting in, so I'll get to see how it handles the wet bitumen roads. Glad the tracks weren't too slippery. So anyway, I'm going to call it quits here, guys. Thanks for watching as always. Like this video if you liked it. If you got any questions about the 76, pop in the comments down below. See you in the next one, guys. Thanks.